Welcome on into the Whatchu Spinnin podcast or YouTube show, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Where we each pick an album for the week. We all listen to it, and then that weekend, or to all three, and that weekend we get on here and fucking talk about them. I'm Dorian. I'll be kind of guiding the ship here, trying to. And then I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
George, the Miho.
I'm Jacob, Jake, second in command, lieutenant to.
Big bets, mijos. All right. So what one do we want to do first, boys?
I don't know. You guys gotta start first.
Let's go with Jacob. Jacob, what did you pick this week?
Oh boy. Okay. So mine. I didn't think I'd go first, but okay. Mine that I got. In like the theme of hip hop that we were talking about, hip hop. I was spinning this week more than like a while. It's been a while that I've been spinning this. But this is Blue in Exile, Miles. It's their third studio album, I think, since Below the Heavens. That was their first one. That was like in 2007.
Yeah.
That one is a classic. I was gonna do that one, but I don't actually have the physical for it. But I would have done it.
You.
But that's their first one. Then they did Give Me All Your Roses While I Can Smell Them or something. That was their second album. That was like in 2011. And then it took them a couple of years to actually like come up with another project. And then in 2020 is when they actually dropped their third studio album, Miles. And what do you guys think about it? Because I have a lot to talk about it. And there is a lot to talk about. It's a pretty long album.
So I listened to it the other day, and man, that album for me, I feel like, I think to a lot of people this might be a bad thing, but to me, I feel like it's a good thing. It doesn't have a lot of replayability to me, just because it's really heavy. Like it's a really heavy emotional album. And when I listened to it, I was like, I went out to the store and I was riding my bike. And I was playing it, and I'm like, am I about to cry right now? But he does get really emotional, and what I notice is that it's a reoccurring theme with Blue, is that he doesn't really like flex with lyrics or anything. He doesn't get like flashy with it or anything. Like he's just always talking about how he feels, and he rhymes like really good. And that was one of the things that really stood out with that album. And yeah, it just seemed like he was having fun, like explaining like what was going on in his life, and you could definitely feel it on that album. But that's pretty much like what I got out of it, to sum it up in all in one. But yeah, I've wrote down a couple of songs that I like, but get to that later. But what do you think, Dorian?
Yeah, it was a dense project, it was a dense project to listen to. Rounded off about like over 25 songs, something like that, like almost 2-hour runtime, which is damn near unheard of for an album. But I mean, I guess it was, technically it was a double album, and it was, what I thought was really interesting about it was, it had a general vibe, most albums do, where it has a general vibe and then you're able to follow it. And the first part was very heavy, hard hitting, whether you want to call it emotional or just deep lyrics, what have you. And then like the last stretch, and it's a very short stretch, it's like probably the last 5 to 6 songs, the vibe completely switches and it's a lot more upbeat, a lot happier, it's like, it was almost like watching seasons change, kind of. It was almost like the first part, it kind of reminded me of like, he's talking about a lot of heavy shit, talking about all these people throughout history and like rap music, and making a shit ton of references, which is one of my favorite things about the album, was that it's very reference rich, whether he's just name dropping or referencing big historical black figures in American history and all that shit. And then the last part, that was kind of like a winter kind of vibe, like a bad weather, like gray vibe. And then the last like 5 to 6 songs completely switches, and I was driving around listening to it and it was pissing down rain, and I was like, man, this is like, this last little bit of this album is actually like would be like really good like summer driving music, like super upbeat, like almost like
going into spring, huh?
Exactly, yeah. And I was like, I kind of went, whoa, what the fuck, when I heard it, that switch. It was very interesting. Definitely threw me for a loop. Exile's production on it is fucking phenomenal. You can tell that he's largely influenced by Madlib, which makes sense why him and Blue work together so well, because Blue has worked, they have a full album, him and Madlib together. But yeah, it was very
effortlessly, huh?
Exactly. They go together very well, and it's because of that production style. But yeah, it was insane. Even some like weird little almost interlude throwaway tracks that just sounded kind of funny, that you're like, oh, this is actually pretty dope. And then
that's what was hard for me when I picked this album, is that just the runtime is pretty fucking long. It's like an 4:30, and it's like 20 tracks. But it's one of those albums though, I feel like, that even if you're like just playing it just like on Spotify, or if you're streaming it, and if you just hit shuffle, you could just listen to any song, because any song of it just flows like so well. Like it's literally just jazzy beats, jazzy production with like hard bars, like just rhyme.
It's really soulful. That's the thing with it.
Yeah.
It's like really soulful.
Get in bed.
Nebs is
not out.
Nebs is on one. No, but yeah, you can really just like play like any song on this album and just like vibe with it, because it's all just like jazzy beats and really like soulful lyrics. That like Blue's like, he's like a legendary rapper. Like he knows what he's doing to a point where like his rhyme schemes and like what he talks about is like so in depth, and some of it like it does go over my head. But like I try to catch on to most of it, and I'm like, oh dang, that's super good. Plus included with Exile's production, like with that jazzy, like like hip, like soulful, like all the beats and stuff, like you can't go wrong. Like you could play any song on this and you just vibe with it, like
it almost gets better the more you listen to it, because then, like you're saying, like you catch on like to the other things that you're saying that you might have like missed or something.
Yeah.
Another point that I wanted to make is that it also, because of that runtime, like how long it is, it really feels like a movie of this person's life at this stage in his life. I forget what song it was, but he was saying something about being broke and not being able to pay for his kids. But he said, fuck it, I'm here rapping. And I was like, that was when I was like, oh, damn, like he's just in the moment right now. And he's really just talking about how he feels. And back to the whole replayability thing is that I think because like you introduced this out, because I'd never listened to this album until you pointed it out. I mean, there's a couple songs, but I never fully listened to it. But because of that replayability, because it's so heavy, I will listen to it when I'm going through something, just so I could kind of like, like be on the same page with Blue. And then Exile's production, making it soulful and even more emotional. And I feel like, if I'm ever going through something, I think that's when I'll listen to that album. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, But yeah, that album is pretty good. Like that song you're telling or talking about, Dorian, that it's called, I think Spread Sunshine, I think the song that it's called, that you might have to fact check that, to be honest. But
what's he
like mentioning all these dead rappers,
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and it's just like it's like a 4-minute song of him just mentioning from Guru to
Yeah.
like Gangstar to and shouting out people who still alive like Primo or DJ Premier. And like dude, he talks about so many people and it's ridiculous. It's crazy. I almost couldn't believe it as I was listening to it. I was like, you hear songs within rap and hip hop like giving a shout out to someone who died, right? But this song was just like a love note to all of those rappers and how much he appreciates those people and what they did for him and his career right now in rap. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty heavy, but it's definitely like a solid album. It's a movie, dude. Yo, last night was a movie.
Last night was a movie. He always in that song specifically. He like every bar he like mentions someone. Like every verse, like he'll name drop somebody. Like he'll name drop Biggie, Tupac. He even like goes back. He goes back to like jazzy because this album is really jazzy. He even talks about Miles Davis. Like he brings up Miles Davis, like the impact.
The song Miles Davis, yeah.
Yeah, like there's even a song on this called Miles. I think Miles Davis. Yeah, Miles Davis. Track number 4. Like there's like Miles Davis. That like my like highlights of this album, I'd say, True and Living, because that song is real.
True and Living the one with the flowers on the album?
No, that's their other album. That album, it's like Give Me My Flowers, but I could still smell them. It's like a different. But there's a song on this album. It's True and Living. That song I really like because I feel like that's something in hip hop a lot. I've noticed a lot of hip hop artists, they at some point in their careers they'll like bring up not specifically religion, but more than anything like a higher power like God, or they'll talk about like their ancestors, or they'll talk about
very prevalent.
Just like another like a greater being that they're like grateful for, that they're like come up from. And that's something that in that song specifically and throughout the album, like it's a talking point that he always brings up. Like he'll always bring up like this and that, and then he'll bring up like a God reference or like a religion reference to kind of show that like he still has like his morals, like he's still in the right place. Because it's not really like it's not like a hardcore like hip hop album where it's like grimy or it's like a bunch of like street stuff. Like it's just a bunch of like soulful, like jazzy, like vibing like hip hop. Like it's something that you could just drive by like on a sunny day and it plays and you just let it ride out.
Definitely a sunny day type vibe, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I was like, it was one of my favorite albums in 2020 when it came out, when it dropped. And I was like, man, I been having this on my mind and I was spinning it, so I was like, gotta have the Migos listen to it, you know.
And I think True Living was the first song that I've heard off the album, and it came. Shout out to Spotify because their Discovery playlist is always on point.
Yeah.
And I say that song, but I never listened to the album.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I'm glad you brought that up because now I listen to it and I'm like, damn.
Right.
But yeah, dude, it's a really heavy, good project. Like it kind of reminds me of Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, just because it's heavy. It's heavy. It's not like you could just bump it like any day or anything like that. For me personally, but when you do listen to it, man, it hits you. Like it's good.
It's one of those things, and I completely agree with the To Pimp a Butterfly comparison because it is true. But to take kind of what you said and kind of tweak it a little bit, it's at a surface, like when you listen to it on a deeper level, you're like, oh, this shit's actually like meaningful. This is actually fucking saying something. But at a surface level, when you just hear it in passing, it's not. Like these are bangers. Like I was listening to it, you know, obviously
Because
like,
of Exile's production, huh?
Exactly. Well, no, not even that. It's just like, oh, some of this, like, yeah, you're not going to be, you know, you're not going to take the aux at a house party and, you know, put on fucking Miles Davis, but yeah, or put on These Walls by Kendrick, you know, off of T-Pab, but they're bangers at the surface level, but then when you really listen to it, it's like one of those things that, you know, you could see a homie head bop into it and be like, yo, actually, like, take some time to listen to this, like, pull up the lyrics, like, do all this shit, listen to this. It's a banger at its face value, but behind that, it's much deeper meaning, and that's what I really like about both of those albums, you know, and it's kind of interesting. I do have something to say. It kind of goes back
to what Jacob was saying too, when he was saying that, you know, when you listen to it again, there is certain things that you miss.
Yeah.
Because it is deeper than just, you know, the surface level. But I mean, it is dope on the surface level, like you were saying too.
Yeah. I hadn't ever heard this album until Jacob and I started talking music, and we and we made a Spotify playlist, and he had put, I think, like he put Miles Davis, True and Livin', and then another track off of this, and I was like, dude, this is fucking sick. I was like, this is dope. And then when he said, like, as soon as he sent that snap, we're all in that Xbox party, and I'm sure you guys remember me, I was like, fucking bet. I was like, let's go. I haven't actually listened to this full thing, but what I have heard off of it is fucking incredible, so let's get it.
I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's one of those albums that for sure, like, when it comes on, you kind of have to just write it out, because it's really meaningful. It took them, they started production on it in 2017, and it took them almost 3 years to, like, actually complete the album. Like they went through like even a whole trap like album that they scrapped and in like making this album. So it took them 3 years.
I'm glad they just started.
Yeah, no, they did it right for sure. When it dropped, it was definitely one of the greater albums in 2020.
Do you know if they released like any single for that album before they released it?
They definitely.
I could imagine True and Livin' was probably a single.
True. I know that. What song is it? Blue as I Can Be. That song is a banger. I know that probably might have been a single. What about
that? I would imagine You Ain't Ever Been Blue probably would have been a single off of there too. That's probably my favorite song off of the album. Just that vocal sample to You Ain't Ever Been, and then dude, it's so insane.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any song that stood out to you guys in terms of like uniqueness or something like that? Like, not even, I mean, it's all good, but I'm saying like maybe a track that maybe you thought wasn't that great, but you thought it was unique. Is there any track on there that you think?
Yes, let me pull it up on fucking Spotify right now.
I know.
I forgot to write that one, but I have one too. It had like a reggae like thing to it, and it
African
really
Dream
stood out to me.
African Dream was a song like that for me. I was like, I wouldn't exactly go out of my way to listen to this personally, but I was like, this is a fucking very interesting idea and concept for this song. You know, it has like that super islandy reggae vibe, and then it's just like, oh, holy fuck, this guy's spitting. Like, it's like, oh my god. It almost sounded like an Afro Man track at first. I was like, what the hell is this? And then it kept going, and I was like, oh damn, okay.
So much.
Yeah. I was like, it's a great execution.
Yeah.
Great execution. Not something I would listen to like go out of my way, like I said, but I thought the execution on that was incredible.
It stood out though, huh? And I think that's what was important for that. I feel like almost every album has to have that one track that just stands out. That's like kind of like an experimenting, like an experiment. And if it goes over well, then they're like, okay, this is, as an artist, they're probably like, let me venture off in this, in that zone and explore that like avenue.
Right.
But it's always a risky move for someone to do.
Yeah.
But
that's why it's buried.
Did it, and
like those tracks where it's a super bold move like that, you notice it's never at the beginning and it's never at the end of the album. It's always like fucking buried. It's like in the dead middle.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is we are we are taking a long ass shot here with putting this out. We like it, you know, but we don't necessarily want this to be what people's first impression or last impression of this album is. So we're just going to throw it in the middle because, you know, and who the hell knows, maybe it'll be someone's favorite album or favorite song off the album.
Snoop Dogg said, fuck it. I'm Snoop lying now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, what albums did you guys pick out for this?
Whose do we want to do next?
I feel like we talked about Miles for like 30 minutes.
We talked about it for a solid 20.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, whichever.
George, can you even hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was just writing shit down.
Oh, no. Which one do you want to do next, George? Do you want to do yours or mine?
Doesn't matter to me.
Let's talk Illmatic. Let's talk George's. I did just say what it was, but go ahead and introduce it.
All right, yeah. So Illmatic, because this whole music thing started off because we all started talking hip hop just like randomly, and then it just one day me and Jacob and also you were listening to Boldy, and then I decided to get drunk and add you guys into a Snapchat, and I called it If It Ain't Boldy.
Yeah, because I wanted to actually tell this story because this is actually fucking hilarious. So George got on a sick one, made a group chat called If It Ain't Boldy ... added me and Jacob to it. That name was because I went off on George and Jacob in our main group chat with like, how many people are in that now? Like fucking 12, like 10 or 12.
There's a handful.
There's like 10 people in this group chat, and I was at work. It was like I was kind of pissed off that day, and I tried saying something about music, and I think I was like trying to talk about Pop Smoke or something, and George just went off and was like, I don't know why people think Pop Smoke's so great, blah blah blah. They only like him because he's dead.
Right. Just going on. I don't want to discredit him. I'm not on this podcast to talk shit about people.
No, I know.
I need to understand me personally, like that's not the type of music that I really go for.
Boldy, man. If it ain't Boldy, like
yeah. And so George had this hot ass take, and I was like, all right, dude.
Hot take, dude. Steaming hot take.
And so I was like, y'all motherfuckers are a bunch of hip hop elitists in here. Like, if it ain't Boldy, just wipe your ass with it, huh? I was like, I'm over here trying to talk about decent music, just trying to, get some opinions or expand your music taste. But if it ain't Boldy, just wipe your ass with it, huh? That's where if it ain't Boldy came.
Yeah. That's the ongoing joke. That's the ongoing joke.
That happened, but that hot take burst this, thing of us always discussing hip hop. And I feel like I can't really talk about hip hop without acknowledging Illmatic, man.
Yeah.
When I found this album, I was in freshman year of high school and had a iPod Touch and I had Pandora. And I remember adding a Kanye West radio station, right? And a song called Still Dreaming by Nas came on, and it was because Kanye West produced the track and then he was also on it. And then because of that, I was like, damn, this dude Nas sounds really cool. I'm like, what is So I started a radio station called Nas, or like a Nas radio station. The first song that comes up, NY State of Mind.
Of course.
And I'm listening to it. And it just starts off like he's literally in the booth and he's like, all right, I don't know how to start this shit. Rappers, I'm up here flipping, what the fuck, you rhythm, I be kicking. Musician. And I'm like, dude, what the hell? He just went off immediately. And then the beat is so grimy. He's talking about he's talking about so much crazy shit in that song. And his lyrical flow is just something I hadn't heard before. I've listened to, at the time, I was still discovering a lot of different types of hip hop and stuff. Thanks to Pandora, but everything that I heard from him was just something I've never heard before, and I just thought it was so crazy. And then like, I remember like kids in high school were talking about like, what was that label called that Lil Wayne was on? It was like,
Young Money.
yeah, Young Money or
Is it?
something like
Okay.
that. And I remember they would not stop
YMCMB.
talking. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I remember getting, I'm not trying to discredit like Lil Wayne or anything like that. But I couldn't believe like they were listening to that. And then I found this dude called Nas and I'm listening to it all the time. And I didn't bother to Google or like YouTube like Nas or anything. Like I just was reading like the little, at the time, Pandora had like a little paragraph of who this artist is and like how he came up and everything like that, right? And that's all I read, and I just kept it to myself. And I'm like, man, nobody's listening to this. Like, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe nobody knows about this. And then later, I like go on YouTube and I look up interviews, and I was so ignorant. I thought that nobody knew who Nas was, and I immediately found out that Nas had such an impact on hip hop, and I'm like, what the hell?
No, dude, it's like, what is there not to say that's already been said about Illmatic and Nas? Like literally, like it is.
Well, the thing is, it's like so I found out that he dropped out of school when he was in 8th grade. And then, there was a lot of interviews that I've seen and stuff, and he literally just like read dictionaries. Like he would just read a dictionary. And that's how he came up with like all these crazy flows and everything. That's how he was able to do that at 17 years old. It's just so like, it's inspiring because it's like, wow, if you really put your mind to it, you could accomplish anything. This man is a hero. And just like the production list on that album, like he was nobody. And all of a sudden you had Q-Tip, you had DJ Premier, you had Large Professor, you had all these other producers that were very prominent in hip hop at the time. And all of a sudden, let Nas do his thing. They made the beat for him. And now it's like one of the most prized albums in hip hop.
Oh yeah.
It's just insane.
No,
what do you guys think about it?
Dude, like if you think about hip hop in the 90s, that is like one of the talking points that comes up is Nas, especially Illmatic. Because that album, the album came out, what, 94?
1994. Yeah.
Yeah. What else came out in 94? Like,
wasn't that Ready to Die, or was that 91?
Biggie Ready to Die. That's what was like so like impactful because like Biggie was rapping like West Coast, like California style, and the Nas was the sound of East Coast rap.
I think Ready to Die might have came out in 90s.
Somebody fact check it.
Yeah, let me fact check it.
I want to say,
that's to my point and your point also is that so the album inspired a new wave of hip hop, like a new grimy wave, because Big L released an album in 1996, crazy album, very dark and grimy, and then The Infamous by Mobb Deep, also 96, and then Ready to Die by Biggie, which I think is 96. I'm about to fact check it, but it just birthed a whole new wave of artists really exploring the dark side of the way they grew up. And New York at the time was definitely crazy. Like you had all these different blocks, all these different like Queens, Brooklyn. You had the Bronx. Like these are all areas that birth like very, very tough lyricists.
Yeah. I was fact checking. Ready to Die, 94. So we had like two of the biggest albums. Two of the biggest albums in hip hop history came out within fucking months of each other.
Same year.
Yeah. Exactly. Here, let me even see. I'm gonna like get it down to the month.
That's what's crazy about it. Like the fact that Nas came out with that album in that year, and it had even to this day, dude, you'll still hear people talk about it and play it.
Oh,
And it's still carrying, like, it's one of those albums that is a classic. It is a classic. There's no denying it.
Classic.
When it dropped, like, it was a hard classic. Like, just everything about it, production, Nas himself, his storytelling on on all the songs, like, it really is next level. And it's like that East Coast, it paved the way for, like, all of the East Coast rappers. Like, Mobb Deep came up right next to it, like, right side by side. All the other, like, newer, like, generation, like, 2000s, 2010, if you want to get into it, like, they're still, like, backpacking, like, off of what Nas did.
And
and then arguably Jay-Z too, right? Because there was what was his album? Was it called Reasonably Doubt?
Yeah.
I think it also might have came out in '94.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, another thing about it, like, to talk about, like, I mean, it was literally like a bomb got dropped on the game at that point. And it was almost like a volcanic eruption, actually, because it still has, like Jacob said, it has lingering effects to the game to this day. And I have a question for y'all about it, actually. Might this be one of the most, like, obviously hip hop and rap, it's all sampled, like, all of it is sampled from some place or another, or rarely is it handmade. Might this be the most sampled hip hop album of like this current generation? Because I was listening to it and I was like, oh my God, like, half of this stuff is, like, being used in songs from, like, the past decade. What is it? God damn it.
I think it definitely
The World Is Yours.
Is.
The World Is Yours. That got sampled on Nike's On My Feet by Mac Miller.
All the time, yeah.
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 Yep.
And it's just stuff like that. I'm like, good God. And also another thing about, like, because I didn't get into Nas until after, or, like, actually listen to him until I was already pretty deep into listening to rap music. And, you hear people talk about Nas and how influential that album is. I didn't think he would sound like that higher pitched voice. It's kind of like my thing with West Side Gun. Like, his name sounds aggressive as fuck. And then you listen to him, he's like, do. So, like, he's just flexing. Like, he's just flexing. I'm like, I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but for sure, like, classic album. Like, you can't say anything that hasn't already been said about Illmatic. Like, the appraisal that it gets just being such a
to put it simply, you can't have a conversation of hip hop or rap without mentioning Illmatic. It comes up all the time. You ask all these rappers, and you could watch all these interviews where they ask you, "Oh, these are your top 5." Nas is always on that top 5, dude. It is crazy.
With good reason, I think. With absolutely good reason, like.
Oh, without a doubt.
And the fact that, like, that was like his starting album. Like, that was like the album that he, like, came out with, because he must have
came out with a banger.
But yeah, the fact that he had such a strong lineup for it, and, like, it dropped when it did, like, it's legendary.
And I honestly don't know the connections that he has had, because there are stories of him, like, rapping for Biggie, like, freestyling for him and stuff like that. And then, like, there was this group called the Main Source, and Nas went up there, a kid fucking went up there on stage with Main Source and literally spit such a hard freestyle. And I think that's when everybody was like, who's that?
Yeah.
And with good reason, like, oh my God, like, the way this guy can, again, tell a story, like, there's very few people that like, there's Kendrick definitely comes to mind when I think about who can, like, tell a story, and Kendrick is definitely one of them. Nas and, like, a couple other people. And it's just insane, and I could, transitioning into Mad Villainy, MF Doom was one of those people. He would create, like, this this whole fantasy world, and you were sucked into it, of him being a mad villain. You know, like, yeah, it's, yeah. I don't know. Do you guys have any more thoughts on that? Like, what was are there any songs that you guys really like off the album?
Dude, I mean, the classics like NY State of Mind. Fucking, what's that last song on there? I gotta look at it, but it's just banger.
It ain't hard to tell.
Banger, man.
It ain't hard to tell.
Yeah.
It ain't hard to tell. Yeah, that song. I used to listen to that song like every other day when I was in high school. Like just like the way he
lyrics
and like it's just like
fire.
he's like not even trying. Like he's just like rapping and it's just flowing like off the tongue. Like that song, Life's a Bitch. We were bumping that last time we were going to to Gateway Grill.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is there not to say about Illmatic?
Yeah.
Like,
I think The World Is Yours is probably my favorite song off of there. If I had to pick one that wasn't one of the iconic bangers. One thing I did, like, I really wish that Q-Tip would have like actually spit a verse on One Love. That was a perfect track for him to hop on, and all he did was a hook.
Yeah.
I had actually forgotten about that song until I went back and listened to this album this week, and I was like, fuck. I was like, man, why couldn't they just let Q spit? Like, that was a perfect beat for him because he produced it. It was like, dude, it's like, just let the man hop on.
That song could have been, that beat alone could have been on A Tribe Called Quest.
Exactly. It was like beats, rhymes, and life. It sounded like something right off of the album. I was like, damn. I was like, yeah.
It probably was, to be honest.
It was probably a Lucy. He probably just like gave it to Nas.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, it ain't nothing off my back here. You can have this beat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think One Love is definitely one of my favorites. It Ain't Hard to Tell and Memory Lane.
That's a good one too.
Yeah, that
for
one.
For me, I think One Love might stand out the most just because the video. I don't know if you guys seen the music video.
I didn't know they had one.
Man, like it just, whoever like directed that and shot it, holy cow. It went perfectly with what he was saying, which was, you know, his homie got locked up and he was just telling him like what's going on the block, like what's going on around, you know, his family, like how his girl is doing, how his mom's doing, you know, how his daughter's doing. And he's all just like saying this to him, and within the video, like he gets the letters and he's reading it and he gets mad, he gets sad, gets angry, he shows it to his homies in prison, and they're all just looking at him. They're like, "Oh man, Nas wrote back." And it's a really cool video, man. You guys should check it out. But I think One Love might be my favorite one.
Oh yeah, I'll have to check that music video out. That sounds awesome. That sounds badass.
Really cool.
Dude, I know I'm ready to talk about Dorian's album. I knew Dorian was gonna bring this up. I was like, someone's gonna bring it up. It's gotta be Dorian.
And it's gotta be the first episode. We gotta do it on the first episode. So George kind of alluded to it earlier. But we got another just atomic bomb to the rap game. We've got Mad Villainy by Mad Villain. Probably I get goosebumps every time I get a chance to fucking nerd out about this album, not even lying. This is one of those albums that, like, when you hear it and if you actually like it and you latch onto it, it is an album that will change your life. I remember the first time I heard it, I was driving around with my homie Dylan, and I had just wrecked my car, like totaled it. I had hit a deer, and we're driving around in his like 99 Chevy Blazer. All he had was a cassette player. Didn't have one of those headset jack things, or the headphone jack things.
Yeah.
That's like connected to the tape. I took him to House of Records when he got his license and got this car, because he collected records too. He bought one cassette, and it was fucking Mad Villain. And I was like, I had never heard it. I hadn't really listened to Doom. I actually had no idea. I had never listened to Doom at all. And we just went on a drive. Like, we just did aimless shit in his car and listened to this whole album. And My God, dude. From the start of the album, the supervillain skit, that intro, even though it's just like a skit, but that right at the end where he's like, two very nice boys who just happen to be on the wrong side of the law, and then you get the from accordion, and it's like, bro, like in my opinion, albums that are meant to be played cover to cover are some of the most beautiful pieces of art in music across any genre, not even just hip hop. And this is like the best example of it. Because everything, like the outros to songs, you listen to them on Spotify in a playlist, and you're almost shooting yourself in the foot. Like, it is almost an album, like, unless there's like a couple songs that I'll like put on out of context, you know, not listen to the album in full. But if I want to listen to anything off Mad Villainy, I'm playing the whole thing. It's only 45 minutes long. Another thing that I forgot to mention about Illmatic, we went from talking about the longest album of the three to talking about the shortest. Miles clocks in at an hour 35, and it's an hour longer than Illmatic. Illmatic's only like 37 minutes long.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's not even that long. But he also has like a very short track list.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the songs I think are like closer to pushing like 4 minutes, but they're usually around that 3-minute range.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's like a relatively short track list.
And so, just to educate that don't know, Mad Villainy is an album dropped in 2004 by a group called Mad Villain. That group, or it was a duo, MF Doom doing most of the MCing and Madlib with the production. Probably one of the best examples of both as far as talent goes, and on a record. MF Doom has some of the craziest verses of his entire career on this album, and it was one of the most influential things. Came out 10 years after Illmatic. There are people that, like, you could look it up, and there's hours and hours of footage of people that are absolutely massive in the game, like Mos Def, just going off about this album, just losing their mind. Tyler, the Creator, all of Odd Future at a festival and seeing Doom live, and they're rapping along to every single song he played off of this. Like,
to hear someone like Mos Def praising him, I'm like, that's already like, whoa, you know.
That's like the ongoing joke about like MF Doom and Madlib and like Mad Villainy, that it is like your favorite rapper's favorite rapper.
Yeah.
Like you can't not like MF Doom, and like just that duo that they had coming onto this album, dude. Insane.
I always want to say it's not even a duo, to be honest, because they have so many like alter egos.
Yeah.
And that's
it blows my mind.
So
you know?
So this is another one where even like the interludes on this album you don't skip, and like these weird little there's literally just instrumentals. There's literally just like little instrumentals. Bistro
is my favorite. I love that song.
And if you listen to what Doom's saying in that song, he's shouting out every other alter ego that they have.
Yeah.
He's like, we got King Ghidra on the mix, Yesterday's New Quintet,
dude.
Victor Vaughn. It's like, oh my God, dude.
Bistro really stands out to me because it sounds exactly like Knowledge, the Dream album. That song sounds like the whole project that Knowledge had on Dream. You listen to that song and you go listen to Dream, and you're gonna be like, oh, this is clearly where Knowledge got this.
Yeah, it's a direct correlation.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest things to me, and one of my favorite tracks off of this is it's right toward the end. It's like one of the last. Okay, so yeah, track 17, Fancy Clown. Talking about Doom's rapping, and he features Victor Vaughn, his other alter ego, and it's talking about Doom's girl cheating on him with Victor Vaughn, and they are like trading verses and shit. It's phenomenal. It is so good. And then an interesting thing that I think you guys know, I talked to George about it, is when this album was being made, it was unfinished. Like it was barely, like it hadn't been mixed yet. You know, it was basically done, hadn't been mixed or anything or mastered. It got stolen and leaked online. This was in the early days of leaks on the internet. And they didn't know how it happened or who did it, but they were so pissed that they said, screw it. We're not, like, that's unofficial. Obviously, they came out and said, that's not the album. It's not done. Clearly, you can hear it. It's not done. They said, screw it. We're not going to release it for another year.
It was MF's Doom alter ego called Metal Fingers. I was leaking it online.
Yeah. So they said, screw it. We're not going to release it. So they both went and did other music. Doom went and did Take Me to Your Leader under the King Ghidra moniker and debuted Victor Vaughn with Vaudeville Villain. Madlib went and did Champion Sound with Jay Dilla.
Mm-hmm.
An incredible project. All three of those are insane projects.
Oh, yeah.
I think we could all agree that in terms of beat production alone, I think MF Doom, Madlib, and Jay Dilla are like the trifecta of like producers that are underground and that are like far, like they're on the far left field. They're so removed from what's going on over here. And I feel like a lot of people like identify with that because they feel like they're kind of left out and stuff. And so when they hear that type of music, they're like, oh shit, they're doing something fucking really tight. And like I could identify with this.
It really is like stuff you haven't heard. Like, for example, Accordion. Like that song is like, it comes up so quick in the album that it just throws you off. Like you hear that you hear the accordion sample and you're like, what is this? And then you hear like
it's different.
Snaps. You hear the drums and you hear everything come in and then you hear the bars. And it's like
accordion and Figaro.
Yeah, Figaro is fucking, I love Figaro. Even the bars on this album, dude, I do agree with Dorian that Doom spits like one of the, like his most iconic bars, like Meat Grinder, you know, tripping off the meat grinder. That song also like really good. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Like all of these songs that they're clever like one-liners that he's saying that they stood the test of time.
But it's funny, it's like it's a one-liner, but it forms into a whole fucking bar of just witty shit that connects one after another.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think we could all agree that maybe MF Doom, I want to say most F's, but honestly MF Doom probably takes a cake on how witty you could get. Like I don't know any other rapper that's that witty with his lyrics and that quick setup. That quick, you know?
Yeah. The way he sets it up.
Yeah.
The way the setup
I think
too,
he does
like
he does like foreshadowing as well too.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you'll hear him, he'll be spitting on this album, especially on this. He'll be spitting and you're like, oh, like the punchline to this is gonna come up. And then it's just like he's alley-ooping himself playing pool basketball. You know, he's just setting himself up and then like 3 bars later he finally delivers the punchline.
Yeah.
And like on Great Day, one of my favorite rap lyrics of all time is he's like, I wish they'd fix the door to the Matrix. There's mad glitches. Spit so many verses, sometimes my jaw twitches. One thing this party could use is more booze. And you're like, God damn it, dude. You're like, how? How do you think of that?
I love that because he's like rapping. He's matching syllables with syllables. You're expecting like him to match it, but then he just hits you with more booze, like, you know, and then he raps that with another like sentence. Like that's what's so crazy. His one-liners, like the way he sets up and delivers it. I forget what song it is, but where he's like how can he hold heat and preach nonviolence?
I heard that. I can't remember.
That's right after Beast.
He's like,
damn it,
you gotta start a speech. Come on,
that's Raid.
like
that's Raid.
Yeah, like the
Raid?
fact that he says that, and he says,
I have that song written right here.
you got that written down. The fact that he says
Yeah,
he like says that, like he builds it up. He's like, how can you hold heat and preach nonviolence? And then he says, he's like, calm down. He's about to start a speech. Come on, silence. Like he's like aware of what he's saying, and he's like doing it as like a third party, like a third person in the background, like, hey, like listen to like what he's saying. Like the way that he's just so witty with his wordplay and like the way that he matches everything. Like it really is insane.
I think it's the way he writes, because I don't know if you guys like follow comedy a lot, but I do. And there's a certain way that they write comedy. They have the initial part, the setup, and then they have the punchline, and then they end it with going back to the beginning. And then when they go back to the beginning, they're like, people in the audience are like, oh shit, you connected everything and it all makes sense, and that makes it more funny.
Yeah.
And that's what MF Doom constantly does with all of his songs, all of his lines. Like he sets you up, he delivers the punchline, and you think it ends there. Nope. He says something else that connects it back to the beginning. It's his writing style that's comedic. And it is comedic. Like you hear it and you want to laugh, but also you're like, damn, that was hard as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think I would consider myself like a casual listener of MF Doom. Like there was always songs that I found and I always liked it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to check out his album later. But I never got to it. But Accordion and Figaro off Mad Villainy were songs that came up on my discovery on Spotify, and I liked it. But I just never went back and listened to it.
Yeah.
But the source, Doomsday, the Operation Doomsday and Food were two albums that, I mean, it almost at this point, it's like everybody knows like those two albums. But the song Doomsday was the first song that I actually listened to by MF Doom. It was just so different. Like I was saying earlier, it was just so left field. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it just, it made people who feel like, who were into rap, but were into the like mainstream thing. And I don't even mean it in like a hipster way. I'm just saying like,
no,
they just wanted something different. And they heard people like MF Doom and we're like, and Quasimodo, and we're like, the fuck is this? Like, this is different. Like, it's exciting, to hear something so new and so refreshing, even though it's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Since early 2000s, like Mad Villainy, right?
Yeah. And it's like it goes back to your favorite rapper's favorite rapper quote, right?
Yeah.
Is that people will get influenced by him and make completely different music because of how unique he was and how goddamn talented he was, both on the mic and on the boards, production wise. Like,
oh god, yeah,
and
Metal Fingers.
That whole Metal Fingers instrumental series, like, he's an acquired taste. His solo work, all of his work is an acquired taste. Anything that was done by him, whether it's any of the aliases, himself, Mad Villainy, very acquired taste because it's not mainstream. But you look at all of the people that were influenced by this dude, and God, it's like all of these guys are huge. Like we mentioned, Tyler the Creator, Mos Def, all these guys, massive now.
You could even throw like Talib Kweli under that umbrella just because.
Yeah, Mac Miller.
Yeah, you could even throw Talib Kweli under that umbrella as well because he worked with Mos Def and created Black Star.
Right.
And it had very similar. It had more of a funky vibe, but it kind of rolled off of Jay Dilla style and as well as MF Doom style and even Madlib,
Right.
So I think Madlib, Jay Dilla, and MF Doom are like the trifecta, dude, of like underground beats,
Yeah, they definitely paved the way. This album, especially it really like put people to the ear to the underground. Like it let people know like there was another scene going on that they weren't aware of. And even to this day, you can still see it still comes up. People talk about MF Doom. This is one of the most iconic, like, mad villainy. Like the other day, I have a MF Doom shirt. I wore it to the gym, and I was like working out, and then some like guy that I had never seen at the gym like showed up. He was a younger guy. He was like in his teens, and he told me, he was like, "Hey, I like your shirt." I'm like, "Hell yeah!" I'm like, "You like MF Doom?" He's like, "Yeah, I like MF Doom." I'm like, and he's like, "I'm listening to it right now." I'm like, "Dude, like the fact that it has just that big of an impact that like people recognize it being so underground and starting so like small and cliche, but to the extent that it's gotten now, where like it's like a well known like just
Jacob, you flexing that hard, you gotta show up with an MF Doom shirt to the gym.
yeah, dude, sure.
You
I
mad
had
flexing, dude.
I had to, you gotta show support. You gotta show support to the to what
Yeah,
you.
it's crazy. Like I got two friends, Javi and Thomas, who like are selling sneakers and stuff. And Thomas has food and he has Operation Doomsday on vinyl. And he also bought MF Doom's shoes. He has the
Dude,
shoes.
those dunks look insane. They look so cool.
Yeah.
They're like really expensive though.
He wants to sell them, but he's like, he just can't let them go, dude. And I don't blame him. I would keep them fucking forever.
Yeah.
And then he also has like another one that's kind of like I think they are MF Doom shoes, I think he said, but they got repainted. So they're not like really like anything like that special or anything, but he has like the OG shoe that he had. Yeah. And it's just like insane to think about, you know. But the fact that MF Doom has so many aliases, and so much so that like he even had a shoe that people are trying to buy for like thousands of dollars is what the fuck, you know. His impact on hip hop arguably bigger than Nas at this point, you know.
Honestly,
and then unfortunately, because after he passed, it only made it even bigger. Like his legacy is still going, which is really cool. Yeah, dude.
Yep.
One last thing before we wrap up here. Did y'all notice that there's just a dead ass Quasimodo track on this album? Like Dune's not even on it.
Yep.
Shadows of Tomorrow. It's just a straight Quasimodo track.
Yeah, Shadow of Tomorrow. Yeah.
It's like, bro, so funny to me. But
those are kind of like the hopes when I first heard this album like years ago, and I'd hear the instrumentals, because some of the songs are just instrumentals. I was like, if he rapped on these, it would be insane, because some of the instrumentals are like hard as hell, like they're super ill, and like they're just instrumental, like no one's even saying anything on it, it's just the beat. So if he would have added something on it, that's like my only regret that I have with the album, is if there would have been like someone else like on the mic in those instrumentals. But other than that, man, like classic album for sure.
Oh yeah.
So with Shadow of Tomorrow, I have to fact check this, but Madlib released an album called Shades of Blue, and on that album he has a song called what's it called? Stepping in Tomorrow. Yeah. And on that track, Shadow of Yesterday, he says lyrics that are almost the same on that track from what did I just say? Stepping in Tomorrow. It's mind blowing to see like all these influences throughout hip hop that have really shaped and paved the way to new underground stuff or like mainstream stuff. I know it's changed. Like there's a lot of different genres and stuff like that, but it's definitely so interesting to see, and to see this grow literally as we're growing as well, to see what's going on in the hip hop rap community.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, 100%. So, any final thoughts on Mad Villain? Or Anything like that? Alrighty. Well,
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. All of these albums phenomenal. I think we did a great job this first episode. Some really profound things were said. Had a good time. Let's go in the order that we went with the albums. We'll tell the album for next week right here. It'll be documented. Jacob, what is your album for next week?
I have not thought about this.
You got to pick one. I told you that. I told you.
Actually, Dorian, you could think about it. Dorian, do you know your album that you want to use?
I do. I've got it right here. Let me get it.
Nacho Libre.
You ruined the fucking joke.
Right.
Joke. This isn't actually what I'm picking. Jacob, you ruined the fucking joke, dude.
To be honest, I would not be upset.
George, I know you're not going to be too fond of this one.
Okay.
Oh,
no, I'm excited. It pushes my boundaries, so I'm excited for that.
We're going Noise by Ghostmane. Way different than Mad Villainy, but still, it's a phenomenal
I'll let
record.
George pick. I gotta look at what I'm gonna pick out.
Okay.
So it was a very close tie. And I'm gonna give you guys the option, actually.
No.
To pick between these two albums.
No. You have to pick. We don't get to help.
You pick.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know, man. I didn't think this through.
So I'm going to pick El Camino by the Black Keys.
El Camino by the Black Keys?
Damn, okay.
Wow.
I like
what
that.
What a pick, dude. Man, I haven't heard that in like 10 years. I'm stoked to listen to that.
Dude, I listened to just like Nas's album, like there's very few albums that I could fully say I could listen to it front to back without skipping any songs.
Right.
I'm happy with every song that plays. That album definitely is up there with Nas. It's crazy, completely different, but it's a banger, dude. It's a fucking banger.
Hell yeah. We'll have to put this in the If It Ain't Boldy chat just to remind everybody.
Yeah, so Jacob, to give you more time, Jacob and I were talking about, I had made a playlist adding our albums. So Jacob had a point actually where we start a playlist and add the favorite songs off the albums that we're gonna talk about or have talked about.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. If we do have a playlist for both the full albums of everything that we've talked about and then one of the favorite songs. We have two separate ones.
So double ones? Okay.
I know what I'm picking. I am looking for it.
If it ain't Boldy, dude, I swear.
It's too soon for Boldy. Definitely too soon. Where did I put this, man? I got it.
You might have to repeat it because Dorian's out the picture.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Dorian.
Actually, don't tell me. I want to.
Yeah. I ain't gonna tell you.
The action out of it. Did you expect I was going to pick El Camino?
What?
Did you expect I was going to pick El Camino from the Black Keys?
I did not, no. I do love that album, though.
Yeah, I was actually going to pick, and this might be the next one, but actually, I'll save it. I'm not going to say anything. I know
what did you pick, Jacob?
All right, my pick.
Hold on. Before you say that, Dorian, when he says it and then we peace out, and you stop recording, I actually want to stay in the chat for a little bit and talk about how this went.
Okay.
So my pick for next week.
Let's go.
It had to come up. It's gotta come up some point. Why not right now? You know.
Exactly.
Not,
We're gonna talk about some
that
crazy
hip
shit.
hop, and it's like that fucking. We'll get into it.
Heater. That's a heater, dude. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for sure. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it next week.
Yeah. Well, if you are watching, thank you so much for stopping by. Jacob, George, thank you for agreeing to do this shit with me. This was pretty awesome, pretty fun. We're at an hour of 10 minutes of recording right now. That'll probably get sliced down to just under an hour. Great topics, great albums. Had a blast listening to some of this stuff again. Now that I'm, a little bit older than I was the first time I heard it. Very excited for next episode. We're going to have multiple genres.
Yeah.
This is going to be very different. Very different vibes. Little man Ollie's going to say goodbye.
We got Ollie here.
But this was episode 1 of Whatchu Spinnin'. I'm Dorian Dilly. Peace out.
Later.